I wanted to give this little cheat sheet for beta draft. So I'm only going to talk about Ordinaries in this video. I'm going to do a more extensive set review for every card, but I wanted this to be a little preview into that. So I broke Earth into 4 tiers. So these are the best cards in Earth at Ordinary. And then these are cards that will probably make the deck most of the time, but I'm not really excited about. And then these are cards that I will consider putting in my deck if I need to make playables. And then what you'll find when you draft beta is that there's tons and tons of Ordinaries and Exceptionals that just do nothing, or they're situational, or they're meant for constructed, or they don't see play in literally any format. These are the cards that you will just never play and you'll just ignore them in the pack. I don't even know what half of them do because I've read them once and decided I never need to read this card again. If I had to rank these, I'd probably say Amazon Warriors and Barry are probably the best, but you should usually take these 3 power minions over Barry, but Barry is very powerful. And then Common Sense is just a really nice thing to do on turn 2, because I'm finding more and more like 1 and 2 mana minions aren't that impactful most of the time. So having a Common Sense to go get your Amazon Warriors early in the game so that you have a turn 5 play that's really impactful, or a Common Sense to get a Berry to bury your opponent's Amazon Warriors or something is going to be really important. I think Fire is going to be the deepest element. It might be the best element. If I had to rank these cards, I'd probably say Sandworm is probably the best. I think I like Minor Explosion a little bit more than Firebolt. Sacred Scarabs is just a messed up card because it just trades up most of the time. It can trade for multiple things. If you give it extra movement with like a Mad Dash or something, it can be pretty nuts. And then it has the best 2-drop, which is Violent, and Scorpions isn't too far behind that. It's obviously much worse than Violent. I like the Scorpions a lot more than like the Pit Vipers because they can actually hit for 2. Pit Vipers are only a defensive play, whereas Scorpions can just get in there. All right, and then as you'll notice, there's not that many 4-power minions, so even the Caravans are a very good card. Sandworm is very good. There's no 4-power minions in Earth at Ordinary. Of course, there's Amazon Warriors at 5 power, but that is why Earth is so good, even though it's not as deep, I think, as Fire. I think Fire is probably better than Earth, which makes it, in my opinion, the best element in both Arthurian Legends and Beta, but they're pretty close. Like, Fire's pretty close to Earth in Beta, and Fire's pretty close to Water in Arthurian Legends. These are the cards that I will play most of the time in this tier. Probably Heat, Rain, and Incinerate are pretty close to being in this top tier as well. And then these are just kind of curve filler minions, but I'll definitely play these over these every time. Mad Dash, I think, is my favorite card in this tier. It's pretty close to being up here. It's just better than you think. And one note on this card is that you do draw the card before you choose which ally to move. So just play Mad Dash, draw a card, and then decide what you want to actually give the extra movement to. Spin Attack is a serviceable removal spell, but Fire has a bunch of much better removal. But you'll play Spin Attack some amount of the time. Real Dromedary is a tier below the Wild Boars in Earth because Fire just has a lot more playable cards, but I'll play it some amount of the time. And then these are the cards that you'll just never touch because they're just horrible. And Critical Strike, I feel like I've seen people play Critical Strike more than they should. It's not really a removal spell. It just maybe makes something trade up. I just don't think that's worth a card. All right, and then Air. I guess it's harder to say what the best Ordinaries are here. So I think it's either Lightning Bolt, Grapple Shot, or Plume Pegasus. Similar to the Caravan, like any 4-power or 5-power minion is just going to be good. Highland Clansman is a bit iffy. I think it depends on your deck. Like if you're playing Spark Mage, you want to have a lower curve, so then Highland Clansman gets a lot worse. So it's kind of context dependent. Obviously, it's a super powerful card, and you'll basically always get a 2-for-1 with it if you can get to 7 mana, is the only thing. And then Blink always just seems to kind of get a 2-for-1 or get a bunch of damage in and save your minion, all kinds of good stuff you can do with Blink, or you can just cycle it and move your avatar up. These are all pretty much the same to me. I mean, Snow Leopard's definitely the worst here, but all these other ones are pretty bad. I think Midnight Rogue and Men of Lang are probably my least favorite actually here. I've just found Midnight Rogue to just not be impactful enough. It's just, you'd just rather have a 2-mana 2-power thing than a 3-mana 2-power thing. Like, I don't think the ranged plus stealth really makes it worth the extra mana. And then Air has a bunch of cards again that you just don't really want to play. Probably Apprentice Wizard is the one that people are going to play the most, and I think you just shouldn't play Apprentice Wizard. I mean, if you really just need a 24th card for playable reasons, then you can put this in. Fade, I've also seen people play. Obviously, Stealth is good. Obviously, drawing a card is good, but you kind of have to line it up, right? And that's just not going to happen all the time. Mortality, also people will play, and I think it's justified more in Sealed than in Draft, because people are just going to play Earth Fire like most of the time in Sealed, which is kind of sad, but Mortality is a good card against Amazon Warriors, of course, and Howling Clansmen and some other mortals. I'm not too big of a fan of it in Draft. Like, these three are going to be the best of this tier, but hopefully you never have to play any of these. All right, and then Water. There's only 3 cards that made it into this top tier, and honestly, Swan Maidens is a little bit iffy. In this row, there's a bunch of 2-power, kind of do-nothing minions. That just doesn't make you excited to play Water, obviously. Ice Lance just got nerfed really hard when they changed the projectile rules. It's way worse range than it used to, and obviously it's very bad, but it's still serviceable compared to a lot of this other Water kind of garbage. Pufferfish is fine. I'm not really a big fan of these lethal guys, but you can play it. It's probably one of the best minions here, honestly. And then this is all the kind of garbage in Water. So like Sea Serpents and Pirate Ship should be really good, but it turns out that Waterbound is such a huge limiting factor that you just can't really play Pirate Ship or Sea Serpent. The only exception, I think, is if you're playing Water Shaper and you can flood their sites, then you can actually do something with these 2 cards. And then you also have to be like super careful where you put your sites. Like Wave Shaper only works if it's in a water site, and it also has to be in a body of water that's touching their site. So even if you're in Wave Shaper, it's pretty hard to actually have this thing line up correctly. And you can kind of say the same thing with Drown. Like, I don't think you can really main deck Drown unless you have a Wave Shaper. There's a direct correlation between how good an element is and how many units it has at Ordinary that are 3 or more power. So Fire has 5 minions at 3 or higher power. Earth has 4 minions at 3 or higher power. And then Air has 3 minions with 3 or more power. And then Water has 2 minions, and one of them is not that great. Yeah, my ranking of elements is going to be Fire, Earth, Air, Water. All right, and then let's look at this stuff. So don't play these cards. I don't think I need to say that. These are both terrible. The sites... Okay, so I think the worst site, even without considering how bad Water is the Water site. Just Scry 1 isn't going to matter a lot of the time. I think maybe the other 3 are quite a bit better than the Water site. So it's kind of hard to say. They all have their merits. Like, Earth is just value every single time. You just get a 1-mana, 1-power minion. Like, even though 1-power minions aren't very impactful, it's still just like, attach it to a site and it's pretty good. And Desert is obviously a great counter to the Village. There's not that many great 1-power minions to kill with this. The best one is definitely the Sacred Scarabs, just like an incredible target for Red Desert. And then the Tower Cycle is obviously great. Like, if you can tower into a Clansman, or even just like a turn 2 Plume Pegasus or something like that, it can be pretty powerful. I guess I probably like the Village the most, and then the Desert, because they both affect the board most of the time. I probably like Earth more because it always affects the board, and then Desert, and then Tower, and then River. I would say the Village is like in this tier of cards. Like, I'm not going to take it over one of these, but I will value it about similar to one of these cards. And I think pretty much the same for the Desert. I think I'd value it around this tier of cards. The Tower, I think I would actually value it higher than all of these cards. And the River is like, yeah, I guess in this tier, but kind of toward the bottom. Like, it might be like in between these 2 tiers. Like, I'd probably take most of these cards over it, but I'm definitely taking it over all of this. All right, and then the Elemental Avatars. Starting with Geomancer, this is an incredible card. I would take this like over a lot of the other cards in this tier. I think Geomancer is up here with like Amazon Warriors and Barry. Flamecaller is iffy. I've played it a couple of times in a deck that had tons of minions with Fire Threshold, and it was just okay. Like, a lot of the games, it's just not going to end up doing anything at all, in which case Spellslinger is just better. I think I would take it in like this tier, and I'm probably going to play it most of the time that it makes sense for my deck, as far as I can tell. Maybe like 15 or more Fire Threshold or something like that. So I played Flamecaller in a deck that had 16 Fire Threshold on minions, and it was just okay. So that's like a pretty extreme amount of Fire Threshold, and it was still just an okay card. I think Flamecaller is not that exciting. If you compare it with air and you can get blinks and stuff like that, flanking maneuvers, it gets much better. On a baseline, just in an average fire deck with a bunch of fire minions, you're gonna have to need like a lot, probably 15 plus for this to actually be playable, and even then it's not amazing. And that flame color deck that I had, I went 2-1. Spark Mage, I feel very, very similar to how I feel about flame color. I've played it a couple times and it's been just about as good as Spellslinger. I think maybe a little bit worse. So I'd probably take it kind of low. I mean, obviously it's super dependent on where your deck is at currently. If you got a bunch of Cloud Spirits, and in the last deck that I had 5 Band of Thieves and I played Spark Mage. So I ended up with 13 Air Threshold in that deck, and it was just okay. I think probably Spellslinger would have been better. So it's probably similar threshold wise as the Flame Color. You probably want like 15 plus, and then it becomes a real option. But below that, I would probably just not play it. Maybe I would actually play it just because I want to play something different. But in terms of like what is the best thing to do as far as your win rate, it's probably like below a lot of these cards, maybe like on par with them. Waveshaper is kind of interesting. I think it's actually like kind of a must for this deck. Like I would take it very highly if I was really wanting to be in water, because then you have an excuse to play your Pirate Ship, your Drown, and your Sea Serpents, which everyone knows are really terrible cards. So you can get away with some stuff if you have a Waveshaper and you want to play water. Your deck's not going to be as good probably as the rest of the decks in the field just because you're playing a bunch of water cards, but at least you have an excuse to play these cards and have them actually be good. And then, as you know, we ban Sorcerer in our group, but if you're ever drafting beta and they don't ban Sorcerer, like, I think this is just the best card on this whole table. You just want to take it and then don't take any minions or any spells that cost more than 5 mana probably, and get to like 5 or 6 sites, and then just double draw the rest of the game. And you're used to Sorcerer being like an aggro deck in Constructed, but really Sorcerer, you should play it more like a control deck. Like all you want to do is get to the late game and just destroy your opponent with card advantage. So it's almost exactly the opposite as it is in Constructed. Okay, thank you for watching this beta Ordinary set review. Beta is, I think, the worst draft format that exists currently. The elements are pretty unbalanced. If Sorcerer isn't banned, then if someone drafts Sorcerer, it's just a feel bad. They should have really printed that card as like an elite or unique rarity avatar. One thing I'll say is that draft is self-correcting because everyone knows that Earth and Fire are super good. They are going to be very heavily contested, which means that a lot of the time it's going to be right to draft Air and it's going to be right to draft Water because it's going to be wide open. But you should also be prepared for the times that Fire or Earth are wide open and you can draft a functional deck and make playables. If you're interested in draft, please click the link in the description to join the Sorcerers at the Core Discord, and we draft every Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Please subscribe to the channel. I draft every Wednesday evening and I record my games and I put those videos on YouTube. That's going to be it for this one. Bye guys.